Yeah, good.
All right. Shall I start as soon as I can? Or are you going to say
Yes,
something?
I'll just introduce you, Maise. Yes, so good evening and welcome to the latest of our Harif lockdown lectures. We are a group of 6 volunteers, and we run an association of Jews from the Middle East and North Africa, which aims to educate on the history and culture of these Jews. Please do check out our website, which is harif.org. Do subscribe there if you want to be informed of future talks. And also check out our sister website, Point of No Return, which you can find on Google just by typing in Point of No Return blog. This talk is being live streamed to the Harif Facebook page. If you would like to ask the speaker some questions, please do write them in the chat. And when Maise has finished her presentation, I'm sure she'll be very happy to answer questions. Well, many of you will remember that Maise was with us in October when she gave us a very riveting talk on the Jews of Shanghai. And Maise has come back by popular demand to talk about one of the most colorful characters who lived in Shanghai, the scion of an aristocratic Baghdadi family, Sir Victor Sassoon. Now, Maise Meyer is really the authority on the Jews of Shanghai, the Baghdadi Jews. She's a double graduate in English and humanities, both with honors, and she also got an MA degree in international history. She's got a PhD from the LSE, and her publications are From the Rivers of Babylon to the Whangpoo, A Century of Sephardi Jewish Life in Shanghai, and Shanghai's Baghdadi Jews, a compilation of biographical memories. So, without further ado, over to you, Maise.
Well, good evening. Thank you for inviting me back to tell you about Alice Victor Elias Sassoon, one of the most exciting personalities I've come across in the course of my research. I'm grateful to Lady Evelyn Lady Sassoon, who generously gave me the photos for this presentation and the privilege of reading Sir Victor's diaries. And here's a page of the diary. You can see he wrote these meticulously for 34 years, from 1927 to 1961. Just take a look at this page. It's a researcher's treasure trove. I read the diaries 3 times, always discovering something new. So I really got to know him well. I discovered that behind his debonair veneer, he was shy and retiring. The diaries gave me a deep insight into the evolving historical events he lived through, so much more interesting than reading newspapers. The Japanese confiscated the diaries during the Sino-Japanese War, and when they returned them after the war, they offered Lady Evelyn £10,000 to buy them, but she turned down their offer, responding in her Texan drawl, "You're out of your cotton-picking minds." She kept them in a vault in her home in the Bahamas. I shall digress to tell you a little about Lady Evelyn. When I phoned her to introduce myself and said I was interested in writing a biography about Sir Victor, she snapped at me, "I'll get my solicitors on you." And well, I explained to her that I would write the biography with or without her permission. And if I didn't, somebody else certainly would, because I'd seen loads of documents on Sir Victor. And there was a sea change in her attitude. She wanted to tell me absolutely everything. There were interminable interviews, phone calls, often very late at night, and she frequently dined at my home And wait, I just have a picture there of Lady Evelyn with my son and daughter-in-law when she visited us once. And uh, she very kindly invited me to go to the Bahamas to research the diaries, and also to her home in Dallas. She introduced me to Sir Victor's friends, his banker, and also solicitor. And she organized never-ending lunches when all I wanted to do was to read the diaries. I went self-catering on my subsequent visits. Now let's get back to Sir Victor. He had his roots here in Baghdad. Now this is his illustrious great-grandfather, Sassoon ben Salah ben David ben Yaakov ben Salah ben David. You know, Ben means son. So we got his whole genealogy there. And he was the head of the Jewish community. He funded its religious education and made provision for the needy. He had the distinction of being the Pasha's chief treasurer, and was treated like royalty, as the historian Cecil Roth describes. Attired in luxurious robes every fifth day, accompanied by an escort of horsemen, he paid a formal visit at court. Heralds proclaimed his approach through the streets. The common people called him Sadna ibn Dawood, our Lord, son of David and king of the Jews. The sovereign would place him on the throne opposite his own. Well, the Sassoons were prompted to leave Baghdad under the oppressive rule of Dawood Pasha, who brutally persecuted his Jewish subjects and actually imprisoned David Sassoon, only releasing him after an enormous ransom had been paid. The family fled from Baghdad, assisted by bribery and disguise, and settled in Bushehr. That's a family tree, which I should have shown you a bit earlier. You'll be seeing it again anyway, that you've seen. And this is where Bushehr is, on the Persian Gulf. And it was the East India Company's trading port. Now, when the East India Company's trading monopoly was abolished, opening India's doors to private enterprise, David Sassoon settled in Bombay in 1833. It was a British possession and ensured political security and religious freedom. Now, this is Sir Victor's grandfather, David Sassoon. He was extremely tall. His oriental garments and headdress added to his dignity, and he never gave up wearing them. He spoke Arabic, Hebrew, Persian, Turkish, and colloquial Hindustani, but never mastered English. He was the founder of a vast commercial empire dealing in an unlimited range of merchandise. Perhaps his greatest asset was his family of 14 children, including 8 sons from 2 marriages. His first wife died. And these sons became valuable agents. And this is his second wife, Faragha Bey, who's Sir Victor's great-grandmother. She was only 11 years old when they got married. There was a difference of 35 years between the eldest and the youngest of his children. Now, the Sassoon firm especially employed Jews from Baghdad as clerks. Judeo-Arabic was the media of communication. It's Hebrew written in Arabic script. Increasing numbers of Baghdadi Jews came to India to escape conscription and religious persecution. They were confident that they would find employment in the Sassoon firm. Now, it was said of David Sassoon that he was fervent, I'm quoting, he was fervent to engage in any enterprise that promised to promote the welfare of his fellow men. And he observed the precept of donating at least 1/10 of his income to charity, and ascribed his success to maintaining this practice. Charity and business went hand in glove. His family laid the foundation and the infrastructure to ensure the maintenance of the Baghdadi identity in India. India, and later on we'll see this was the same in Shanghai. They established synagogues, schools, and cemeteries, which are still preserved by trust. His generosity to the citizens of Bombay is impressive, and after his death, they contributed to a huge statue of him, which you see here, and it towers. You can see it in the Sassoon Library in Bombay, and it towers over everyone. And there's some there's a bust of David, and here, oh wait, I think there was another one, but I seem to have missed it. Okay, there we go. Now, the Treaty of Nanking, which brought to an end the infamous Opium War in 1842, opened Shanghai and other treaty ports to trade. 10 square miles of land outside Shanghai was set aside for foreign residents, and this evolved into the International Settlement, which combined the British and American settlements, the French concession, and the Chinese city. They were separate administrative units, each with their own government, laws, and officials. They brought no interference from the Chinese government. This seems to me the epitome of chutzpah. Now, David Sassoon, you can see here, with 3 of his sons. When I was in Austria, I was asked if he was the butler, but in fact, this is Solomon Sassoon. It's probably the only branch of the family to maintain its religious traditions. And my family is friendly with David Sassoon, who lives in Jerusalem, and Isaac in New York. There we see. David sent his second son, Elias, Sir Victor's grandfather, to establish a branch of the firm in Shanghai in 1845, when he was not quite 25 years old. And he laid the foundation to preserve their Baghdadi Jewish identity. Elias initially traded as David Sassoon and Sons, actually, and they shipped vast quantities of textiles, wheat, oilseed, sugar to China. He branched out on his own in 1867 and established E.D. Sassoon and Company, which was mainly involved in banking and property. Over time, business rivalries caused friction between Elias and his brothers. And this is quite a rift in their relationship. Now, this is the family tree, which shows that Ellis Victor Elias Sassoon was Edward Elias's grandson. Now, Victor, as he was called, was born in 1881 in his parents' honeymoon suite in Italy, en route from England to India. Leontine Levy was stylish and cultured, and she was his mother, and the daughter of a wealthy Cairo merchant. His father, Edward Elias Sassoon, was born in Bombay and settled in England, where he became a pucker Englishman. He attained high social status, frequently entertaining nobility at his home in London's Grosvenor Place and in Brighton. I love these cartoons of him. Ah, that's not the cartoon. Where is it gone? Ah, there. That's one of him. And there. Now, I have to thank Ada Brodesky, who very kindly gave me this information, which I'm sharing with you. Her late husband's maternal great-uncle, Hermann Torber, the Austro-Hungarian consul in Alexandria, was connected to Leontine Levy's family. Ada was friendly with one of his daughters, Raymond, who told her about her mother's relations. Her mother was Amelia Luzzatto, a sister of Leontine Sassoon. Their brother, Pasha Eduardo Luzzatto was a rich Cairo banker who lent the Egyptian Khedive money to buy 50% of the Suez Canal shares for Egypt after it was built. She told Ada how the two met. Sir Edward Sassoon was en route for India from London, where he was offered Sabbath hospitality by the Levy family in Cairo. He fell in love with Leontine, and when her uncle heard about it, he said, "Who is this Sassoon who wants to marry my niece?" News traveled slowly in those days. But when he was told about this rich, ennobled family, he gave his consent immediately. Raymond told me she always visited her cousin when she traveled from Zurich to London. Well, thank you very much, Ada, for this information. I would never find it in documents. It's precious. Thank you. Now, as Victor, as he was called, was born in 1881. I think I've already mentioned that, haven't I? Now, Victor grew up in China until the age of 7. Then he went off to school in England, to Harrow School. His school days were unhappy, not least because of his meager allowance. It gave the impression that he was stingy. He didn't have a close relationship with his father, who seemed to favor his younger son, Hector, but he had a very strong bond with his mother. Victor went on to Trinity College, Cambridge, where he gained a second-class honours degree in history, and he was given the nickname Eves, the initial letters of his name, Ellis Victor Elias Sassoon. He was keen on amateur dramatics and figured prominently in the Cambridge footlights. Just take a look at these acting photographs. He excelled in many roles, notably that of the stereotypical Frenchman, Flint, whose only purpose in life seemed to be to fall in love with every lady that he met. Victor remained a devotee of the theatre and cinema. To correct a slight weakness in his left eye, he wore a monocle. He wore a monocle. And here you see, you see with it, and he used it to great effect, polishing it with care before fixing it in position. Victor was an all-round sportsman, and he devised 2 pseudonyms, Eve Smith and Val Seymour, so his parents remained unaware of his passion for dangerous sport, such as motor racing and flying. Here we have pictures of him flying. He became closely associated with Claude White, the popular aviator. One of White's most daring feats was to fly with Mr. Smith, alias Victor. You see him sitting on the front edge of the wing next to the pilot's seat. During the First World War, Victor served in the Royal Flying Corps. There are several accounts of the version of the plane crash he had. Excuse me. It was definitely not shot down during action. Incidentally, his air crash had been foretold. According to Evelyn Lady Sassoon, he was to take part in a demonstration flypast and protested that his plane was not airworthy, but the officer overruled him. Victor put great store on clairvoyance. On the birth of Prince Charles in 1948, he had the baby's horoscope read, but he didn't present it to Queen Elizabeth as he'd intended, because it forecast that Prince Charles would never be king. Now, we shall have to wait to see if this is correct. The crash left Victor with a limp and acute attacks of pain in his hip. He had one shoe built up and used walking sticks. He was unable to dance or ride and could only swim by making a painful effort. He was extremely sensitive about his handicap and was determined to overcome it. Let's see it. Now, Victor had an abiding interest in aviation and habitually wore the RAF tie. He became a patron of aviation in England and India and the president of the Royal Air Force Association of Shanghai. And there's the cartoons of that particular thing. Throughout his life, he was passionately British and aspired to a seat in Parliament in the constituency in which his uncle, Sir Edward Albert Sassoon, and his son, Sir Philip, had served for many years. These two press cuttings show that Victor worked indefatigably canvassing votes for Viscount William Peel, leader of the Municipal Reform Party, which was allied to the Conservative Labour Party. The party contested elections in the London County Council. Victor was put off from becoming a politician by his inability to remember faces. It upset him that he gave the impression that he was snobbish. His father's memory had degenerated, and Victor feared that he would suffer the same fate, so he read many books on how to improve his memory. And in his diary, he underlined names, as you can see here, and he often accompanied them by cut-out photographs of people he met. Now, Victor's father, Edward, succeeded to the family baronetcy on the death of his elder brother, Jacob, in 1916, and became a director of E.D. Sassoon and Company. Victor, being the elder and son and heir to Sir Edward, became the third holder of the Bombay baronetcy. Well, you could see dressed very elegantly in fashionable clothes, far quiet from the flowing robes and turbans of his forebears. Sir Victor, as I shall now call him, was eager to take care of his family's interests in India, which included 14 textile mills employing 20,000 native workers. E.D. Sassoon and Company Merchant Bankers was incorporated in India. Sir Victor was chairman and made Bombay his headquarters. The growth of Indian nationalism convinced him that there was little scope for foreign enterprise in India. He caused a storm in the financial world when he announced that he intended to make China the center of the firm's activities. With the benefit of hindsight, this drastic step was a catastrophic error of judgment. After 1929, Sir Victor was domiciled in Shanghai and moved his headquarters there. Like his grandfather Elias, he acquired some of the best property sites on the principle that a good desk has plenty of drawers of all sizes. His business interests in Shanghai were as diverse as the city itself. Insurance, breweries, laundries, public utilities, tramways, tugboats, and bus lines, and many, many more. He believed that one of the secrets of being a successful businessman was to think globally. His philosophy was, sit in countries that are growing and you will grow too. Through investments in India and the Far East, he increased the 15,000 pounds he'd inherited from his father to $1 million, roughly 45 million today. The Cathay Land Company, the development arm of E.D. Sassoon and Company, was the largest single contributor to the growth of Shanghai in the 1930s. It constructed Sassoon House, a landmark on Shanghai's Bund, which housed the prestigious $5 million Cathay Hotel. It was renamed Peace Hotel after World War II, and recently the Fairmount Hotel. The author Nicholas Clifford noted that the Cathy's wash basin and toilets, built to last as long as the empire, outlived the empire, a triumph of plumbing over politics. I just love that one. Um, Labels on the doors of the catty of the toilets, one marked gentleman and the other Chinese, had to be changed hastily due to the uproar it provoked among the educated Chinese. The catty was Sir Victor's pride, and he occupied a large penthouse where he entertained lavishly. His sensational shipwreck and toy shop fancy dress parties dominated the social columns of the local press. He acted as ringmaster at the circus party, and the guests turned up as clowns or performing animals. There's another picture of Cathy. It really was a landmark building. You can see it still. It does dominate the Shanghai Bund. This is in the interior. It's all been renovated. It'll be looking exactly like this when you visit it. These are just tell you some of the things they got up to. It was the place to be in, the Cathay. I think it had very many important personages coming over there, including Noel Coward and also Charlie Chaplin. And there we see he looking very pleased with himself because his Cathy has dominated the skyline and he's wearing a tuxedo and he's got his monocle and also a cigar in his hand, a very large cigar. This is Sir Victor's Tudor-style bungalow, which was called Eve's. It was rumored that his mother had prevented him marrying a non-Jewish titled lady called Eve, whom he loved. And as we remember, it was his nickname when he was at Cambridge. Now, these photos, that's some pictures of, it was really, now today actually, it houses, the land houses a zoo. His home is still over there. It's been renovated. It's zoo and it's got so much space over there, and also a hotel, a vast estate. These photos show his flair for hosting extravagant parties. Hospitality was an art to Sir Victor. He was a gourmet cook. His Eve cookbook included recipes for Eve's cheese and Sassoon curry, and he relished spicy food, even if it made his brow break out in sweat. He was weight conscious, particularly as his obese brother Hector had died at the age of 34 after an emergency abdominal operation. His diaries include various diets. In one entry, he wrote, "Keeping trim on vegetables." His small yacht, Eve's, of course, was built in Norway and shipped out to Shanghai. His diaries chart his impressive rise from last place in sailing competitions to steadily winning all the trophies. That's his yacht. He's a sailor. Now, he raced greyhounds and horses under the pseudonym Eves. His horses were easily identified: Happy Eve, Holiday Eve, Courting Eve, Wedding Eve, Honeymoon Eve, and even Havoc Eve. His homes and all his cars were called Eve. In Bombay, his large yellow car sported the number plate Eve 1. Several of his 22 grandchildren were named Eve. Sir Victor was passionately interested in um, Chinese art. His renowned ivory collection was valued at £127,000 in 1927, roughly about 460 today. And these volumes tell the story of his collection, the catalogue of the Sassoon Chinese ivories as well. Yeah. His passion for acquiring new gadgets earned him the title of Gadget King of the Empire. His walking sticks unscrewed, a glass tube popped out and was filled with his favorite cognac. I saw several of these in his Dallas home. Now, he had a passion for photography and was regularly seen with one of his 3 cameras around his neck. During the Sino-Japanese hostilities, which started in 1937, he risked his life to take photographs when a Chinese mine explosion caused the Cathay Hotel to sway. A Chinese soldier, mistaking him for a sniper, fired a bullet, narrowly missing him. Later, the general sent his apologies to Sir Victor for any damage inflicted on the most honorable and beautiful Cathay Hotel, with a peace offering of a packet of sweets. In his album at his Dallas home, I saw these graphic photos of the war-torn Chinese city, which was that's him with his camera. And here we see the pictures of war-torn city, which was part of the foreign concession. Cinematography was Sir Victor's hobby. So when visiting Hollywood, he shot his own films. Wait, let's get these done first. These are very graphic pictures. So he visited Hollywood and he shot his own films of Marlene Dietrich while she was appearing in Universal Studio production. So rumors abounded that he might be planning to invest in Hollywood. And of course, Hermann Göring, who was the propaganda minister, the German propaganda minister, obviously considered him important enough to condemn him on radio as a mischievous Hollywood playboy. So we see some photos of him with film stars. You might recognize them. That's Debbie Reynolds. And I think quite a few more. I don't recognize, perhaps you do better than me in recognizing them. There we know Norman Wisdom, Errol Flynn, Victor. As you see, he mixed business with pleasure. The Industrialist with Betty Davis when he visited the studio. Back's American Empire Alliance. In the course of his travels, Sir Victor crossed the Atlantic more than 100 times and visited every continent by 1936. He went to many European capitals to buy factories and machines and to recruit engineers and specialists to help to industrialize China. The Budapest Press announced the arrival of Asia's Rothschild, who holds in his hands the greater part of Shanghai's economic life. He is a leader of Asia's finance, commerce, and industry. Sir Victor's worldwide contacts in government and banking circles equipped him to play the role of a roving ambassador for England, and he never missed an opportunity to state his forthright and provocative political views. In New York, the FBI insisted on giving him 2 bodyguards, believing he might be a target of Nazi or Japanese gunmen. See, he really could be the roving ambassador. He's very comfortable entertaining people and being entertained. And Sir Victor supported Chiang Kai-shek and was a close friend of his brother-in-law, Dr. Kuhn, who was a Yale-educated finance minister. He presented Sir Victor with a first-class gold medal and an honorary tablet with the inscription, "The nationalist government of China conferred this upon Sir Victor Sassoon for the virtuous work you give with a willing heart." He obviously considered it important enough to hang it in his home in Dallas. Well, soon after the outbreak of World War II, Victor contributed huge sums to the British war effort. And a friend expressed surprise when he donated valuable diamonds. And she said, "You really love those stones." And Victor replied, "Sandy, if you don't love what you don't give anything." I've actually met Sandy in Arizona, and she told me that story. She really liked him very much. I think it was a mutual. They liked each other very much. So Victor made himself personally responsible for providing milk to all the refugees, and his rehabilitation fund loaned money to them he gave them, they became artisans and tradesmen. And in time, from the ruins emerged restaurants, open air cafes, nightclubs, and bars. And given Shanghai's languishing economy, it was no mean feat that some 1,400 refugees became self-sufficient. So you could see he provided accommodation for them, and otherwise you could have 100 to a room, and he gave us embankment building and accommodated very many of them. Now, in starting contrast, Sir Victor wished, no, sorry, I've jumped a bit. Sir Victor wished everything he gave to charity to double itself by wise investment and to encourage others to contribute. And he set up various accounts that supported the refugees under the pseudonym of Val Seymour. In starting contrast to their former focus on his spectacular parties, the local press now featured Sir Victor escorting the British ambassador Archibald Kerr and other influential members of the foreign community to shops set up by the refugees and around their camps. He employed refugees in his offices and as gardeners at eaves, and gently pressured others to do the same. In the West, Sir Victor was regarded as an authority on political affairs in Southeast Asia and was frequently interviewed by the media. His outspoken anti-Japanese comments in the press and on Western radio stations received extensive coverage in Tokyo and in Shanghai, and they were tactless, if not blatantly dangerous, because Shanghai was now under Japanese control. But Sir Victor generally treated Japanese officers courteously, but occasionally delighted in ridiculing them. When a Japanese official asked him, "Tell me, Sir Victor, why exactly are you so anti-Japanese?" He retorted, "I'm not anti-Japanese at all. I am simply pro-Sassoon and very pro-British." He was confident there will be no war in the Pacific because Japan realizes the futility of attacking the United States. A war between the two is not even a remote possibility today. And we all know how right he was. Fortunately, Sir Victor was not in Shanghai when the Japanese took over all foreign interests and shipping. Shanghai lost its attraction for him. The rich property empire he and his grandfather Elias painstakingly built was crumbling. His Chinese staff, with whom he felt he had a good relationship, became aggressively anti-foreign capitalist. The deterioration of his much beloved Cathay Hotel distressed him. This extract is from a long article in the Scottish Daily Mail. Chinese nationalist troops swarmed into the hotel and set up machine gun posts in rooms overlooking the waterfront. Guests were now living side by side with the garrison. The manager protested in vain as soldiers carrying pots, pans, rice, and vegetables, and even firewood trod the carpets. They asked where they could billet their mules. My goodness, he must have really felt sad about that. He dejectedly sailed off to America at the end of 1948 in search of attractive investments, switching his fortune from the sale of properties to the West. This was estimated to be 1,500,000, roughly 6,700,000 today. He registered E.D. Sassoon Banking Company Limited in Nassau in the Bahamas. When a reporter inquired if it were true that he was the third richest man in the world, Sir Victor replied smilingly, "I never contradict that because it's good for my credit." Upon further questioning, he said, "If China goes, I'll be way down. If India goes, I shall be around asking for a job." By the end of 1948, E.D. Sassoon Company Limited of Bombay was put into voluntary liquidation, and by the following May, the communists had taken Shanghai. When Mao Zedong proclaimed the People's Republic of China in 1949, a series of new taxes, including heavy land tax, was imposed on property owners. They were fined for non-payment. Arrears of taxes were demanded as well. The Sassoon firm had to remit funds from abroad to pay its mounting bills, including wages for over 14,000 employees. Chinese staff could not be dismissed, even if they were paid compensation. Sir Victor's cousin, Lucien Ovadia, was unable to get his visa until the firm's liabilities were met. Would you believe that ultimately Sir Victor paid the government a huge sum to give them the Cathay Hotel? His extensive holdings in Shanghai were written off, including the 3 Shanghai hotels, which the new government now used as offices. He ruefully remarked, "I gave up India and China gave me up." When a reporter inquired how much money he had lost, he replied nonchalantly, "Oh, maybe 20 million pounds, but I'm not quite sure because of the currency change." He didn't seem to be worried about it. Sir Victor stumbled on the chair and pulled a ligament in October 1950. He became dependent on a wheelchair to get around. Undaunted, he continued to travel extensively. When asked why he never married, Sir Victor replied, "I promised at least 50 women that I wouldn't, and I can't bring myself to disappoint that many." He finally plucked up his courage, wait for it, at the age of 78 and shook the world with surprise when he married his devoted, let me just get that, his devoted nurse. She was Texan, and her name was, she had been his nurse for 7 years. 39-year-old Texan Maud Evelyn Barnes. The name Evelyn is interesting. On the 1st of April, 1959, I show you that her name and the date, All Fools' Day, were no coincidence. The marriage of the richest bachelor in the world, a titled Englishman, to his American nurse was one of the big news stories of the century. And that's a quote, actually. They were married in a civil ceremony at Eve's, his home in the Bahamas, and he explains why he took the step. "Suddenly I realized that there might be trouble over my vast estate when I died. I knew the one person in the world who's really interested in my staying alive was my nurse. And then it suddenly dawned on me that my best years had been those in which she had given me silent and unselfish devotion. I felt I owed her protection and was determined that she should have my name, title, and fortune." The press, however, reported his snappy comments on his marriage. "She is very strict. I'm practically a trained SEAL now. Mind you, I'm always allowed the last word. as long as it is yes. Well, 14 months after his marriage, when asked if after 70 years of bachelorhood, he recommended marriage, he replied, yes, but the first 70 years of bachelorhood are essential if you are to make the correct choice of a wife. I knew how to choose, but then I had been what you might call a professional bachelor. Now I'm happily married. I'm a happily married man, and my friends remark how well I look. Of course, I thought of marriage a good deal before I proposed. We knew each other for 10 years. It was what you might call a long chase. But I'm not going to tell you who did the chasing. She said, why Sassoon is this, I think is a, I like this headline. Why Sister Victor Sassoon is always laughing, the pound is laughing. I think it's a great headline. Although he had moments of deep depression, the Miami Herald noted that he always seems in high spirits. 79-year-old Sir Victor has the secret of happiness. He counts his blessings. And I think these are some of them. So these are his blessings, counting his blessing. And there you go, that's him with Lady Evelyn. In the words of one of his godchildren, Nina Frattini, Sir Victor was an inspiring example of a man's triumph over his physical infirmity. She described him as the most uncrippled person one could ever meet. He propelled himself at high speed around the house in the most up-to-date wheelchairs. He always wanted his to be the first car to take off after the traffic lights had turned green. He never lost his competitive spirit, and at his parties moved briskly around, pouring champagne for his guests and plying them with food. His youthful and debonair appearance attracted attention. And as highlighted in the Miami Herald, now white-haired and handsome, he looks 40. He said he owed it to Elizabeth Arden. It was more likely due to his DNA. His mother, at 91, had lovely silvered hair and perfect teeth. Sir Victor continued to pour vast sums into breeding horses and was one of the top breeders in Britain. The married couple toured a great part of the world. Much of the travel concerned racing and breeding horses. When asked how many horses he owned, he retorted, too many. He actually owned about 200, actually more than 200. And he warned, racing is an expensive hobby, not a way of making a living. His famous old gold and peacock blue Sassoon colors made racing history by winning an astonishing series of 4 victories within 8 years in the prestigious British Epsom Derby. Now you'll understand why he famously said the only race greater than the Jewish race is the Derby. But I was over the moon when I discovered this, just a minute, yeah. I discovered this letter from Queen Elizabeth congratulating Sir Victor. In an email caption, chutzpah, to my publisher, who's at the stage of typesetting my book, asked him to include it, and he replied, chutzpah is always to be admired, and he did include it, thank goodness, and loads of other pictures. Now, Sir Victor was superstitious and made it a policy not to bet on his horses. If I ever back a horse, it either dies at the post or is never heard of again. And he didn't permit photos to be taken of him and before the race with a horse. So that was never allowed. Sir Victor, who had been confined to a wheelchair for 10 years, died in Nassau after a heart attack on the 12th of August, 1961. Several headlines announced his death as a body blow to British racing. Sir Victor, King of the Turf, is dead, but his peacock blue and gold colors will race on. According to his own assessment, he said, neither business affairs nor politics nor an aristocratic descent would have made me famous. My fame is due to the fact that I own the best racing horses of the century. I can see his ancestors revolving in their grave. Sir Victor left instructions that a rabbi should pray over his grave. The title died with him, ending both the baronetcy and the family's last connection with the Sassoon companies in the direct male line. Now, this is a familiar symbol on Sir Victor's stationery. It displays a dove in flight with a laurel branch in its beak, symbolizing peace. The motto below is in Latin, Candide et consente, frankly and firmly, with its Hebrew equivalent above, emet ve'emunah, truth and faith. The lion is a symbol of Judah, and the rod in his hand, the scepter that was to remain with the tribe, representing the legendary Davidic origin, from whom they traced their descent. The seeds of the pomegranate signify countless good deeds, while the palm tree refers to Psalm 92. The righteous shall flourish like the date palm. Today, Sir Victor is remembered in the Bahamas, where his widow endowed Sir Victor Sassoon's Heart Foundation. His youthful face appears here on the stamp, a 70% stamp, commemorating the 5th anniversary of the foundation, with the caption, Sir Victor Sassoon, 1881 to 1961. Ironically, Sir Victor's, whose ancestors founded synagogues and cemeteries for Baghdadi Jews, was buried in a Christian cemetery. By striking contrast, his great-grandfather was buried in a mausoleum near the synagogue he founded in Pune, India. Lady Sassoon told me that his family refused to keep a large portrait of David Sassoon, which hung in her home in the Bahamas. And she said this, it seems that they didn't want any connection to their roots. I thank you all for your attention. I look forward to your comments, and I shall be delighted to answer any questions. Oh yes, before I end, I want to say Eddie Timan, whose real name was Abul Timan, asked me to mention that his ancestor was Sheikh Sassoon, Abu Ruben. I'm sorry he's not here. He would have told us many interesting things about that. But I really look forward to your comments. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Maise. Can you come out of your screen, of your share screen?
Oh, come on. Okay, 1 minute. Let me see how, oh gosh. Wait. Oh my goodness, wait, oh yes, just a minute. I think I might know how to do that.
No longer sharing. It should be no longer.
Is that okay? Yes.
But we can't see you, Maise. You've got to switch on your camera.
Oh my gosh. I'm not quite sure I have to do that.
Bottom left-hand corner, there's a microphone and a little camera. Yes.
Oh yeah, I've done it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lynn.
Well, thank you for the most wonderful portrait of Sir Victor Sassoon. Please do write your comments and questions in the chat box at the bottom of your screen. We actually do have Ellie Timmon's brother on the call.
Oh, great.
He would like to make a comment. Lawrence, can we get Charles?
Yes,
Well, that would be
hello, I'm
lovely.
here.
That's nice.
Yep,
I
Charles.
am here. The first question I have is the email I sent you. I view I'm blanking. Are you the Linda Core that I knew
Yes,
up
I
in
am.
it is? Wow. Small
Have you
world.
got
Camera.
a camera? We'd love to see you.
Okay, I think it's okay, let's start it. I did not come prepared,
Yes,
so
lovely to see you. Yes, it's been
thank you.
about 50 years since we last met. So
Wow.
it's
My
really
lord,
nice.
yes, I left England in 1980. Just a comment
Add
that
anything? Yes.
this information
To
has been very informative. The other thing I sent you actually is the family got together and started a family tree from Sheikh Sassoon in Iraq. And we tried as much as we could to bring it all the way up to the current date. So it's really refreshing. And I thank you so much for this information about Sir Victor Sassoon. I often wondered how it came that he was knighted and what happened when he passed away. So thank you so much for all of this.
Thank you. I'm so pleased to be able to share all my research with you. And you can make all the connections you want with your own family from there.
Right, we have been. Thank you again.
Welcome.
there was a question from Etty about his any connection he might have had with Israel. I mean, you did say he wanted nothing to do with his Jewish roots, but
No,
was
no,
it total break?
Yeah, I tell you, he did. He didn't think it was a great idea that they should have Israel, Palestine, because he said there was going to be trouble with the Arabs. And what he did, he bought some land in South America, and he thought would be a good idea to send them all there. The Jews can go over there, all the refugees, and then they could manage. They could, each one of them, they could have the positions from sweeper to president, and they would manage themselves. But he was a bit wary about the problems it would cause with
Right.
yeah.
Whereabouts in South America? Because of course Baron Hirsch invested in Argentina, didn't
Yeah, it was in Argentina. You know, Lynn, I've written at length about this in my biography of him in my book, but I couldn't fit in everything. But this is something I should really mention because I've shown that he's forgotten his roots. So I should balance it, shouldn't I? Thank you for pointing it out.
Okay, I think we had another question on the relationship between the Sassoon who owned Trent Park. That was, of course, Sir Philip Sassoon.
Yeah. He was the one who was a parliamentarian, and
right.
Yes, they were pretty close friends. Philip used to entertain perhaps even more lavishly than Sir Victor, and he invited practically everyone to his home. Sir Victor wanted to be a politician for some time, but then he just gave up the idea because he couldn't remember faces and it was going to be problematic for him.
But did he actually get dementia?
Or, no, he didn't. No, he didn't. He was very sharp right to the end. I mean, at 78, he got married. That must have been, yeah, he was okay.
Yeah. Must have been very lucid at that point.
Yes.
And of course, Sir Philip Sassoon was the Minister of Aviation at one point. So they must have shared this love of flying and...
Absolutely. I admire the Sassoons, the way they came into British society, the way they did. I mean, they were very friendly with Prince Edward, and I mean, they used to go hunting together and everything. And these came from Baghdad and India, and they mixed with royalty.
This is an interesting question from Alan. When he lived in Shanghai, did Victor interact with other Baghdadi families, such as the Kaduris or the Hardoons?
Well, I didn't, not with the Hardoons, with Kaduris, yes, and with the Eliases, Edward Elias, all the wealthy ones he interacted with, definitely he did. Mm-hmm. But he did as well with the wider community on a very big scale, perhaps even more so.
Mm-hmm. Right. Just having another look. Oh. Thank you, Gladys. She says I look great. That's very nice. We need questions, Gladys. Okay, and did he ever visit Kobe in Japan? This is a question from David Moshi.
No, he didn't. As far as I know, I'm pretty sure he didn't. When he traveled a lot, he went a lot to England for the races and stuff like that. You know, that maybe he didn't go. I don't think he even went to Hong Kong, as far as I know, but he certainly traveled westwards.
I've had a request. People would like a copy of your presentation. I don't know if that's possible.
Oh my, I prefer not to, if you don't mind.
No, that's fine.
But you do make a video, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So that should be fine.
So this should be sufficient. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. And can you tell me how old is Lady Evelyn now?
Oh, she passed away I should have mentioned that, quite a long time ago, at least 20 years ago.
Right. So it's just as well you got hold of.
Oh yes.
And everything.
Oh, she was a very lively character. She really was, live wire, and lots of fun to be with. She drove very recklessly, and if she sort of slightly bumped, she said just a friendly bump, you know, just a friendly encounter. I'd just be quite, I used to be worried when she drives me around, honestly, in the Bahamas. But she was extremely generous to me with letting me research and giving me so many photographs, so many. And now her nephew has taken over the property, and he did the same. He invited me to research, and he's also very nice, very down to it. No airs and graces about him at all.
Right. I think there was some discussion about who would inherit Sir Victor's wealth, wasn't there? I think Ellie, Charles, can you enlighten us about on this question?
Me? Can I enlighten you?
Well, yes. I mean, we
you know,
on
at one time I knew a lot about it, I have to be honest, but I haven't used that information for a long time, and solemnity is creeping up on me. I don't want to pull it out of the bag and get it all wrong, but I know Evelyn Barnes's nephews, and who is Ari Barnes, the person I spoke to you about, and Evelyn, he's got his niece, Barnes, he called her Barnsley's niece, and she had two nieces. One was called Evelyn, and Sir Victor liked her very much, apparently. And I think that she has inherited quite a lot of the money. She really, when I met her, she's very well healed now, and I didn't see her sister, but I think that they got a lot of the money. And as I say, Ari, that's his name, not just his initials, he's living in her home in the Bahamas. So it seems to me that they're the ones who got whatever money was left.
Right. So they avoided a big mess, as in the case of the Hardoons.
Oh yeah, but as he said, he was leaving it to her, and he didn't want there to be problems before. I mean, if that's what he wanted, he was very far-sighted of him, because I don't think there was any problem about it. As much as many people would have felt, well, you know, all this money going out of Jewish hands, you know, that sort of thing. But he made it very clear.
Right. There is a question about other Sassoon descendants. Are they involved in a family business? Obviously, wouldn't be direct descendants of Sir Victor.
Well, one of the first things Lady Evelyn told me was that Vidal Sassoon was absolutely no relation of hers. And I'm a great admirer of Vidal Sassoon. And honestly, she said he was no relation. And Siegfried Sassoon definitely was. He really was.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but many Sassoons married non-Jews and into aristocracy. And, you know, it's a very interesting thing to follow, you know. I'm sure if somebody wanted to do it, they'd find it very interesting. I didn't have the time to go into all that detail.
Yes, as you say, only one branch maintained their Judaism.
Yeah, but Isaac Sassoon told me that there was in fact another branch in India that was also Orthodox, but that's it. This, as I say, David and Isaac, they've maintained absolutely everything that the Minhagim, absolutely everything from Baghdad, and they're very. Oh, you know, you sent me very recently had this auction, didn't they, of all the Sassoon?
Yeah, I think it was Alan Bahi. There was an auction of priceless Sassoon artifacts and Torah, silver, and sort of prayer books belonging to.
Was the Fari Bible among them? I didn't. No, it wasn't.
So yes, that's absolutely fascinating. One question from Sandra: did he ever visit Iraq or other Middle Eastern countries?
Not that I know of. I'm pretty sure no. He was so interested in all in the West and even South America. He's very interested in that. I'm pretty sure he didn't. And I think he forgot his roots as soon as he possibly could.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I don't think there are any more questions. Oh, and Sarah says the auction is still to come. Of course, Sarah Manasseh is a relative.
Oh, yes. Yeah, she's a very good friend of mine. Hello, Sarah. I can't see you, but yeah, we have a very good friend. We went to India together for a conference.
I got asked if he
Yes, I asked that question. So yes, and Alan, thank you for that. The Sotheby's auction is next week if anyone wants to bid on any of the lots, if you can afford it. So I think on that note, we will wrap up, and thank you so much, Maise. That was absolutely fascinating.
I want to thank you. It's been a great pleasure for me. I really have enjoyed this. Thank you. Thank you for your attention. I really do appreciate it. And your interest in my research. It makes it all worthwhile. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lynn, for helping me to set things up as normal. Thank you.
Oh, no, it's my husband Lawrence who's the
technical. Yeah, Lawrence. Yeah, yes. The music and the woodcut. I hope that you enjoyed the woodcuts. Did you like them? Yeah.
Yeah, I thought they were great. I hope everyone else did.
Well,
I love it. I can see them over and over again. And that music, it goes together.
That is lovely, doesn't it? So can I just remind everybody to subscribe to our website if you want to be kept up to date with Harif events. We have a very interesting one next week, actually, about Tunisia. And even if you don't speak French, I mean, the speaker will be speaking French. He has some amazing images and pictures. So even if you don't follow what he says, I think it's worth tuning in just to see the pictures he has. So without more ado, I would like to thank Maise again. I would like to thank you for coming from all corners of the world.
Thank you very much. It was interesting. Maise, thank you very much.